Could you tell me a little bit about yourself in your own words? How would you describe to people who you are?
Well, I am 18. I'm identify as a trans male. I live in Oregon. I am currently in high school trying to get my high school diploma. And then I want to go to college so I can like help people with like mental health and everything and like also be a gender therapist.
Cool.
And because that just really interests me. I like nature a lot.
Mhm.
I like beaches, I like stars and everything, like all that, just anything to do with nature. I really enjoy art a lot. It could be abstract art, it could be like anything to do with the whole definition basically of like art. I just enjoy it. And it's like the whole thing is just inspiring and everything.
Any ways you would describe your experience with systems or outside of systems, like child welfare, juvenile justice, houselessness, anything
Um
like that?
well, my experience with juvenile justice was it was somewhat good, but also there was its perks of being bad.
Mhm.
Um, from me being a trans male, I didn't really get the full support there. There was a lot of residents there that would call me slurs, and
Mhm.
then they would also like say a lot of disrespectful things. And so I would tell like the juvenile staff about it, and they would just be like, "Well, we don't hear it, so we can't do anything about it." But, like, if they were, like, in the same room, I was like, "You didn't hear that?" And they're like, "No." I was like, "Okay." And so it's like I felt like I wasn't getting my needs met because I was every single day I was getting called, like, different slurs and everything, and,
Mhm.
like, I don't feel comfortable here.
Yeah.
But they did let me be in a male like, a males only part, so unit, which was really nice.
Mhm.
Um, and then they did because they had, like, a preferred like, whoever you had, like, preferred staff, like, if you were a male, if you identified as a male, you would have a male pat down. But they did say, "Do you want a female pat down?" I was like, "No, I don't. I don't mind that, having a male." And they were like, "Okay." Um, which was really, like, good that they asked me those things, like, for my own, like, preference and,
Right.
like, safety-wise. But I also like, there was also a lot of staff there that would like misgender me, and I felt like they would do it on purpose, and then they would get mad at me for like correcting them,
Mhm.
which I felt disrespected by
Yeah. Yeah.
because like I wasn't doing it as in like a harsh way. I was like, I was like, hey, I I identify as a guy. Please call me this, and they're like, well, okay, and then they're just have an attitude about it. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, but like otherwise, I had a decent experience there because I like the people there that supported me were very much respectful of who I am and who I identify as, um, and which really made the experience a lot better, even though there was other stuff going on. The most like beneficial like thing I got out of there was how much like even though like there was like all those slurs and everything, it just I guess it kind of like brought me up because I'm like, well, like even though you're gonna call me that, I still know who I am.
Right.
I still know like I am a guy. I know I am a guy. Like you guys can call me a she. You guys can call me a female. Like go ahead. But I know who I am, and that's all that matters.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Snaps
yeah,
for that.
yeah.
Did anyone offer services or supports to help your family in accepting your identity? And would you have been open to receiving those services?
They did offer it, but when I was living with my mom at the time, she was not like, very accepting at all,
Mhm.
and so it was she wouldn't accept the services, and it was like really harsh like on me. I was like, oh, okay, like we're getting help with it, but you don't want to accept it because she just kept on telling me, oh, it's just a phase, it's just a phase. So it's like, and her being part of the LGBT community, I
Mm.
would expect that she would be okay with who I am and who I want to be, but she wasn't. The juvenile system kept on like trying to like say, hey, you know, you kind of need to accept this because it's who he is, and if he's been like this for a while, then he knows it's definitely not going to be looked at as a phase. It's something he wants, and he knows he needs this to be able to feel more like male. Cause
Right.
like I ended up starting my testosterone actually when I was in the juvenile system.
Mhm.
And so when I finally got that point across to her, she was like, okay, I'm a lot happier now that I am on testosterone and that I actually got that, you know, to start.
Did people have conversations with you about your identity? And if so, how was it handled?
Well, there was some negativityness to it. But there was also some people that were actually, trying to be very like respectful about it. And they're like, okay, well, like, can I ask like this question? I was like, yeah, that's fine. And like they would like ask me like, well, like when did you know? How did you know? I was like, well, if something just didn't feel right. And like I would go and I would like tell them like, how I just didn't feel comfortable and everything and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like, cause who you are now. I'm like, yeah. They would ask, oh, well, like, do you like feel comfortable being like, even though you still have like female parts, you still feel comfortable being here? I was like, yeah, it's as long as I just don't be like, as long as like the different residents don't look at me as female, then I'm okay.
Mhm.
And which, of course, the residents still did look at me as female, uh,
Mhm.
but it wasn't that bad, luckily. But
Did you find that there was residents who didn't though, like that were supportive and just got it?
yeah, there was a couple. There was definitely a couple that were very like, no, you are in our eyes, you are a male. So,
Right.
which was very good.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, I remember there was this one juvenile staff that she had misgendered me, and she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I was like, "It's okay. This like I understand like the voice and everything." And she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I was like it's okay. Just like just work on it. And she's like, "Okay." And then she did it a couple more times, but like it was just like I looked at her. I was like, "Don't say sorry. Just like it's it's sorry it doesn't it's not gonna like make it better or worse. It's just it happens sometimes. Just work on it." And so she did work on it, and she like rarely ever misgendered me after that. And it's like I was like, okay, it happens, but if
Mhm.
as long as you correct yourself, then it's good.
Did you have like a particular person who was really supportive for you while you were in the system?
Yes, I actually my attorney, he was very supportive. Actually, he's the one that actually got the ball rolling for me to start my testosterone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
because he was like, these are your rights. They need to follow your rights. And he kept on like telling the judge, like, hey, we need this paper signed so he can start. We need you to like tell the nurses, like, this is he's been assigned this. He's been, he's been assigned the dosage. Like they need to start him.
Get it
He's
done.
had my back since since he was assigned to me. He's like, what? I know we're gonna do good together, so I'm gonna help you. Just help me. I was like, all right.
Has there been any conflicts? So like let's say family, racial, religious, or any other sort of cultural background, has there been conflict around your identity?
Growing up, my mom and my dad, they were very against it, and my mom didn't start calling me by like he pronouns till since just like this late last year,
Mhm.
which really hurts. But
Yeah.
since I've been out for longer than that, and
Mhm.
she also like just started calling me Tyler by the like end of this last year. I'm glad that she is, but it's like, why now? Like why didn't it before? But like, I'm grateful that you are, but just why couldn't you have done that in the beginning?
Right.
And then my dad, I have zero contact with him because it's like he really messed me up with that. And like,
Sure.
really impacted me a lot. My friends growing up, or like when I like came out to them, they were like, interesting. And they were just like, okay, like we'll call you
Mhm.
this and that, like, and I was like, all right, cool. It was
Right.
easy. In school, it was very difficult,
Mhm.
uh, because the whole not like I didn't feel comfortable using the males' locker room, and they wouldn't let me anyways. And I also didn't feel comfortable using the males' bathroom. But I also didn't feel comfortable using the females' bathrooms or locker room. And they were
Mhm.
like, well, just go into a bathroom stall in the female's bathroom. I was like, to change. I was like, well, I'm still going into a bathroom that I don't identify as that gender. Like that's not my gender. It feels wrong. And so it was just like I was like, this is weird. And so it's
Yeah.
like most of the time I never like because I was forced to dress down for PE, and I was like, I'm not doing this. I actually failed
Mhm.
a PE class because of that.
Have you been asked what you want and need to feel supported in your identity? Like, if someone said, "Hey, Tyler, what do you need to feel good or to feel like yourself?"
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, luckily. The main responses like that I give them are, just call me by my preferred name, call me by my preferred pronouns, and you will make me feel supported.
If socially or medically transitioning, were you allowed to take the lead in that process, or did adults in your life make assumptions about what your transition would look like?
Yes. I actually had a doctor one time tell me, she was like, even though it says that this is what you are, it's like I don't feel comfortable providing it. And like I was just like, you know, if a gender therapist has one assigned me to look into starting testosterone and everything, then it's you are required to like even if like you personally don't like the idea, your personal life doesn't come into your work life.
During your experience in the juvenile justice system or in systems, were there people that you felt like you could trust? Were there places that you felt were safe? And were there places you could be fully authentic? So people and places.
There was very few places. That the main spot that I felt the most safest was in my cell when I was in juvie, and I was like, it's like no one could come in and no one, and I could go out, and so because my cell was always like the door was locked, so it was like no one can go in,
Mhm.
and I could just chill in there, and I could just be by myself,
Mhm.
and I knew no one could hurt me or anything, or I couldn't hear the words that they were saying.
Yeah.
And then there was some safe people, like some safe staff there. There was like three or four that were very supportive and everything, and they knew when I told them that the residents were saying stuff, they knew that they were, but they really couldn't do anything without actual, physical proof.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
which really sucked, but they did say like, we are trying to cut down on this and everything. So,
Right. That's good.
yeah.
Do you feel like there's places you could be fully yourself? So like not what some might call the palatable version, right? The version that makes people comfortable enough. But like, did you feel like there's places you've been able to just really be whoever Tyler is?
I guess like it wouldn't be actually a place, just like when I'm around my friends.
Yeah.
Like, I know I can be myself. I can like they're not gonna judge me. And sometimes they'll just be like, this is why we're friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's really good that I can actually be myself, because like sometimes I would just be like, oh, I have to be someone totally different. I'm like, but they're like, no, be yourself.
Have you filed a grievance for any instances of mistreatment on the basis of your gender identity, gender expression, or sorry, sexual orientation? And what came of that process if you did?
Yes, I have made a lot of grievances about it, about when the staff would purposely like misgender me, because there
Yeah.
were times that they would they would look directly at me, and I'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
And so I made agreements multiple times about it, and then the the juvie like higher up people that took care of all those grievances and like everything, they didn't really take it serious, which I felt really, disrespected by that. I was just like, oh. Um, and then there was actually one time I wrote a grievance because there was a staff that had sort of touched somewhere, and I was just like, oh no, like, and so there was just like they didn't take that fully serious. I was like, okay, and they were actually trying to blame that on me. I was like, how are you gonna blame it on me? I
Right.
was like, because like he was giving a pat down, and I was like, okay, you shouldn't have to touch there. Like no other staff does that, so why are you doing it?
Right.
Basically, so
Yeah.
because like both of the times they were just like, we don't have enough proof. What?
Right.
Well,
Right.
like how are you gonna get enough proof? Like you guys don't pay attention, obviously.
What sort of things either worked well when you were in care that you'd want to keep seeing happen, or
Mm.
what things would you want to change? What improvements should be made so that trans folks in juvenile justice settings have a better experience? Um, any thoughts you have there? So if you could wave a magic wand, what would you recommend?
If there was like a designated, yeah, that word, spot for like people that were like either in the LGBT community or that were like trans or anything to do with like that part, like that situation, if they had like their own like unit kind of thing. So like, they know that they're not gonna get judged. They know they're not gonna get like mistreated. And
Mhm.
it's like they're gonna be looked at as, hey, this is you. We are perfectly fine with that. And it's like if they had that, I would think that, none of like the situations that I went through would happen,
Mhm.
that, everything would be cool and that they would be like, I'm fine the way I am. Cool. This is good. I feel supported, I feel respected, and everything would be good. Not a lot of juvenile systems have actually like therapists kind of thing that can, help them. Like, hey, if we get like, this is how you are feeling that day or something, like, if there, because there's a lot of like juvenile like people who are trans that have gender dysphoria in juvie because of the situations.
Right.
And so if they could like talk about it, be like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Can we do anything about that? Which would
Mhm.
be a really good beneficial.
Yeah.
Because I used to get a lot of gender dysphoria in the juvenile system, because I didn't have my binder that I wore, and so I was like, this isn't good.
Right.
So
Would be nice
but
to
yeah,
have someone to talk about it.
exactly, yeah. As long as like it's like if there's someone to talk to, then it's not just all up in your head, and
Right.
then you can get it out.
Any recommendations you have kind of a specific to juvenile justice, youth and trans stuff? Any other recommendations you'd make for what you either wish you had experienced or what you experienced that they should keep doing?
I wish I would have experienced just more like I know I still had support somewhat, but I just wish I actually received it from the juvenile staff because I
Mhm.
was there nonstop. I just wish they would have took more account into helping with the whole situation with the slurs and everything.
Mhm.
And but the one thing that I'm glad that I think they should continue doing
Mhm.
is like, asking, hey, is this you want to be in this unit because you identify as this?
Right.
And like be able to ask, hey, you have a preference with which like staff like gender pats you down? That was really good.
Yeah.
Like, I really appreciated that. But like they were doing good, and then there was just some things that they didn't do good with.
Did you work with an organization or were you referred to services that were affirming, and how so?
There was this one called Capital Star,
Okay.
which it was a therapy, like kind of thing with that work with trauma and everything. And I did actually end up having a therapist that was very supportive, and he was always like asking basically how like my day was and how the unit was, like because he knew that there was a lot of slurs going on, and
Right.
he was like, I wish I could do something about that. I was like, yeah, I know. I
Right.
wish they would do something about it too. But he was very supportive of me and very helpful. When I was in there, I couldn't really express my needs. I
Mhm.
didn't like communicating because I just felt like they weren't going to listen.
Right.
Um, and so he would always be like, okay, well, talk with me first, and like, we'll like we'll help you get your needs like, across.
Mhm.
So, which really helped a lot.
Right, there's like almost, if not over 500 anti-LGBTQ bills in legislatures across the US. There's a lot of activity. There's a nationally
Mhm.
funded, coordinated effort to really reduce and get rid of trans rights and laws and protections. So I'm curious for you as a young trans person, how is that impacting you? Are you thinking about it? Has it impacted you at all? Any thoughts there?
Well, it hasn't impacted me yet. Hopefully, it doesn't.
Mhm.
But I know if I wanted to move to a different state that was like that had those laws, I wouldn't be able to move there
Right.
because I know in Texas
Mhm.
they are very anti,
Yeah.
and like I know I wouldn't be able to if I wanted to move to Texas, but I don't. But like I wouldn't be able to do my testosterone there. They would be very against it, and I wouldn't be able to get my top surgery, like
Yeah.
which you know sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And has it affected you mentally at all, just sort of seeing what's happening, or do you feel like you've kind of got your protection in place with friends and all of that?
It mentally affects me because my my community is being affected. Other trans people they can't get they can't get the support that they need, and it makes me sad that hey, I'm getting support, but I want them to get the support. I want them to be able to get their top surgery or get their testosterone started or continue their testosterone, and it just sucks that they don't get their support
Right.
like that I'm getting. And I wish if I could, I wish I could just make all the trans people and everything in the world just get what they need.
Right. Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tyler, very much for letting me interview you and doing this Safe Havens interview.